This is Real Conversations with Anita, a mental health podcast brought to you by MIASA Malaysia.
Jump straight into you as the president of MIASA, but I think it's just such a jump from little miss prefect from school, and then suddenly we're going straight into being president of MIASA. Before we were here in this room, we were talking about how you were studying, you were in Milan, and then now you're in Penang, and then you went after Penang, you went to Kuantan. Kuantan, you're in the US. So you're a global citizen. Let's take it back to after school, and you are now flying into the US. Now you're out of Malaysia territory. You're back probably in a society that has a bit more, you would have a sense of connection, and somehow it fills a void, or it heals you, or how did it take on from there?
Being alone, far away from family and friends, very far away. US is like 23 hours by flight. I needed to just finish the job and then come home. So there was a lot of growing up that happened during the time, and this was also when my mental health started deteriorating as well. And I could sense something wasn't really right.
Something's off.
Something's up, during the time. So a lot of things happened when I was there. So definitely memorable, not in a good way.
You mentioned trauma. In what way was it trauma? There's different traumas.
Right. So there were a lot of relationship issues during the time, and it was very unhealthy. So it was extremely traumatizing for me.
Would you link it back to how you were feeling as a child, and that would then become the language of relationship that continued while you were in the US?
It contributed definitely. Right? Because you see, when you have a relationship that is unhealthy, and you're always blamed for it, like you're the cause,
and you believe it,
and you believe it. That's the word, and you believe it. And then when you move on to other relationships, you always choose someone that is similar, because you feel this is all you deserve. This is the way of life. This is it. So I think that was what happened to me during the time. And because it was also a lot of thirst, right? You wanted the love, you wanted the attention, you wanted to feel needed. So I compromised a lot of things because of that void.
Right.
Which I didn't know how to manage, or I didn't know how to overcome. I didn't know how to, what do I do?
Was it even a conversation back then?
No, it wasn't a conversation.
It was just relationship issues.
Right.
Oh, it was just something I have to deal with.
Right? And there was a lot of shame surrounding it. A lot of shame and a lot of fear. So I couldn't talk about it. So it made it even worse, because then you don't have any outlets. So you're keeping everything together, so this void becomes amplified, right? And it's so interesting that I'm
Student, and as someone who was in the workforce, were you still A game?
I was.
There you go.
But I did have my days when something happened that it would affect me, but I ignored it. So it was never addressed, and then it was never resolved as well, right? So it just kind of lingered on until I came back to Malaysia.
How do you know, and how did you manage to still focus so much on that side of work, of being a high performing individual, yet have so much to deal with on the personal side? I always question this. it's a common trait I see with a lot of people. Why do you think this happens to I would do that too. Things would fall apart at home, but I could still A game at work. Some people can't. Whatever happens at home translates straight into the workforce, and they won't even come in for 4 or 5 days.
It's because there's a lot of shame, and you wanna cover that shame.
Inputs are interesting.
At least for me,
Yeah.
that was what happened to me, right? So I'm a failure here, but here I'm good.
I'm not. I
I'm
won't
not losing.
allow.
I won't allow it.
Yeah.
I won't allow it to affect this part. Right? This part I have no control, or at least I felt I didn't have any control, right? But this part I have full control of. How I perform, how I talk to people, how I do my job, if I'm productive or not. I'm in control. This part, not really.
Because MIASA focus on suicide advocacy and prevention.
Mhm.
There's a lot of people who are A game at work, and then the next day you see they've committed suicide,
Right.
or they're in such a turmoil that they're in that lingering suicidal.
Ideation or tendencies,
Correct.
right?
Yeah. So that's why I wanted to focus on that. That people don't believe that you're going through something because at work you're Anita
fine.
Abu Bakar.
Right.
You're so well spoken. You have it all together. People give you problems, you throw back solutions. And people don't believe that this is happening. So how do we break that mindset for people who are listening, who are always reading through the things that you guys stand for?
Right. We're only human, right? That's what it is. We're only human, really. Like what they say, the doctors are the worst patient.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yeah, you're right.
You can be, I've got friends where they're so judgmental and negative when it comes to themselves, but they can provide you lots of positivity and give you excellent advice when it comes to you and your life and your questions or whatever, right? So it's the same thing. So for me, it was the same. But I carried a lot of shame. And if you knew me 15, 20 years ago, I would never share it and wouldn't be doing anything that I'm doing today.
I suppose you share it with building MIASA, where you give people a platform, but not yourself.
Not myself.
That is so interesting.
Right. Because I carried that shame, right?
No, I'm just looking at you
Yeah.
now, and I'm like, oh wow.
It was
get
like
it.
I was talking to Zaihan. She's not here. I was talking to Zaihan last night, and I said, my husband was stuck in KLCC, and it was pouring, right? So the driver couldn't come, before we closed, and then I went to Zaihan and said, "Babe, can you help to send me home?" My house is really near from MIASA. It's like 12 kilometers, so it's technically 12 minutes away, right?
Okay.
But if it was 15, 20 years ago, I wouldn't even have asked.
Wow.
That was how much shame I carried, Diana. If I can be brutally honest, yes. Because it would mean that I have a weakness, right? That I would need to ask for help just for someone to send me home when it's only 12 minutes away.
I didn't know that was shame.
That's how I perceive
Okay.
it, you see?
I would perceive it as being.
It's being vulnerable, right?
You're right. Being vulnerable, being independent, and not wanting to give the independence to some that mobility to someone else. I suppose. I don't know. I have a different idea of it, but you are making me question
Your
Am I having shame?
Now, shame is a huge conversation, okay? Dr. Brady Brown took, 10, 15 years just studying shame alone.
I think I'm not well versed at all in that topic, and I think I will go back home and dive straight into that, because I think maybe that's something I suffer as well. So you're giving me this enlightenment right now that I am not ready for. What? Okay.
We're never ready for things.
No, you're shaking me up inside, girl. We're wrapping this up. Okay. Thank you so much. I think with everything that we go through, you are giving me inspiration as you talk. You have a lot that is, I'm really excited for whatever that is coming next. So let me read the question first. Huh?
Sure.
Okay. Yes, I think this is a great question here. It says, how do you keep in control of everything, surrounded by so many just people who need you, but not on the sort of work basis.
Right.
These are people who need you, that depend their life on you.
Betul.
How do you keep in control? I swear, I have a friend that comes to me with a sad story, and I'm like, enough. Too much negative energy. How do you do this?
Lots of practice. Lots of practice. It wasn't easy in the beginning.
Yeah, it's easy to be consumed, isn't it?
Extremely. And I think what happened was I learned how to listen, support, and not bring me home. I think that's the most
Kind of like acting.
kind of like acting. I'm not acting.
No,
not
but I'm
acting.
saying this, it's the same method where
Leave it at work,
Yeah,
right?
leave it at work.
And that way I'm able to have my mental health more intact. Because I live with a mental health condition, and taking care of my mental health is an everyday job, right? And I tell people all the time, when you come to MIASA, it's all problems. Because nobody comes to MIASA if they don't have a problem.
Of course.
So if you're an employee, your staff, or an associate, therapist, whatever your role might be in MIASA, volunteer crisis team member, it's all problems here. But everything that you do, every little to the bigger things, are all meaningful, right? It's extremely rewarding. It's helping a person choosing to live or to die, right? It's helping someone to reach out for the help. It's helping someone to find hope. So it's very fulfilling, and it's very and extremely purposeful, right? So I think when people ask me these questions, it's also healing me.
Okay.
Although it's a lot, because when you see it, of course, the machine is heavy, right? It's 24/7, right? There's no rest in between at all. But because it's such a meaningful and rewarding experience, that you're able to do it.
True. I don't believe you. No, I believe everything you say, but my next question is, when have it ever consumed you? And how did you then tell yourself, wait a minute, I think I'm being consumed by this particular story or this particular time? There must be a time. I think you talk to surgeons, you talk to policemen, you talk to people who are maintaining a society. At one point, something must trigger them, and that will be one of those things that is almost life-changing.
It's interesting that you're asking me this question, because yes, it happened, I think, 5-6 years ago. And it was because of this whole issue that happened in Malaysia within the entertainment industry, and we were getting a lot of backlashes. And it absolutely triggered or activated a lot of things in me, because it's not easy to accept negativity, and when it comes in a huge wave like it did during the time, I couldn't even open my socials. It was so difficult. Not my socials, in MIASA's socials, right? And I think that was the only time, for the first time, that I felt was the most difficult.
Did you just feel like you failed?
Failed.
Or were you on defense mode? Because my question was more towards the stories that might have come to you and you felt affected. But this seems a bit more of
It was a story that came though.
Your intention was to do good, but other people perceived it negatively.
Yes, that was exactly what happened. It was good. It was definitely good.
Yeah.
But then people took it the wrong way
Yeah.
because of the lack of knowledge. because of ignorance, right?
Oh.
And it's like suicide, for example. People judge all the time. Oh, ni mesti lemah iman sebab tu bunuh diri. Contoh. You know what I mean? And then when MIASA says something, and then if people don't have that language and that knowledge, then they think, what is MIASA talking about? So it was something like that.
It was. I
And then it becomes very messy, right? And we can't have a conversation like, okay, netizen 1, come here.
No.
Netizen 2, 3. It never ends.
Netizen 21085.
Yes. So di macam tu.
Okay.
During the time. Tapi alhamdulillah, our netizens have improved. Mental health literacy has increased. Now we see them very supportive, or many of them.
Yes, and I think they school each other.
I love They're very good at research.
Yes. So, I mean, congratulations also to the society and netizens now. Because of you guys, we have a lot of things come to light because people are more prepared to talk. I think it's everybody's responsibility, right?
This is Real Conversations with Anita, a mental health podcast, brought to you by MIASA Malaysia.